Welcome to the Chase Challenge Week 15. Now, my question for this week's reading is, when is enough enough? There's a lot of chasing going on in last week and this week's reading. And how do we know when what we're chasing after isn't worth it anymore? When do we say, look, I've been pursuing this, I've been putting a lot of time and energy and effort into this, and it's just not worth it. I'm done. Like, this chase is futile. We have a lot of chasing going on in this week's reading. We have the king of Israel, Saul, who is chasing after David, who has become wildly popular after defeating the Philistine giant Goliath with just a stone and a sling. And so the king of Israel, Saul, he's chasing after David, trying to kill him. He is jealous of David and he wants to take his life. So we have Saul chasing after David. We have two enemies of the nation of Israel, the Philistines and the Amalekites, who are constantly chasing after Israel. They're terrorizing Israel and causing a lot of fear among the Israelites. They're raiding them. They're showing up when least expected. They're declaring war after them. At every turn, they have either the Philistines or the Amalekites chasing after them. Then we have David. David has been a victim. David doesn't deserve anything that's happening to him. He just killed the giant. He just killed the giant Philistine to help the Israelites. He has become popular, and now Saul wants to kill him. And as you will see in this week's reading, David doesn't even feel safe in his own territory. He actually has to flee to his own worst enemy and become their servant so he can seek refuge in enemy territory to save himself from the king of Israel. So he's the victim, and he's been running for a very long time. In fact, he's been running for years. He has been running for his life for years. And he, up to this point, he's been chasing after God. He's been looking to God's laws. He knows God's laws. He's been trying to obey God's laws. He's been trying to follow him. He's looking to God for help. And even when God doesn't seem to be swooping in and rescuing him from the situation, David keeps chasing after God. But I have to ask you this week, when is enough enough? When does David say, God, I've tried to do it your way. I've tried to live in obedience to you. I'm the victim. God, have I done anything to deserve this? Here I am. It's been years, God, and I'm still running. Nothing's changed. I'm living with my own worst enemies. My wife has been taken away from me. I'm stuck here in Philistine territory. The Amalekites are raiding me and taking every last thing that I have left. At what point does David say, enough is enough, God? The chase is over. It's not worth it anymore. Maybe you've struggled with these kinds of thoughts yourself. Maybe you've said to yourself, I've tried to do things God's way. It's not working. It didn't pan out for me. God's way doesn't work. Yeah, I've been doing this for months and months and months. I've been trying to do things God's way for months and months and weeks and weeks and years and years. It's not working out. So we have a choice. When we're chasing after something and the pursuit seems to be futile, we either keep chasing or we stop chasing and we look to start chasing something else. What's interesting about this week's reading is that you will see that both King Saul and David seek God. They pray to God. They look to God for help. Isn't that interesting? Even while Saul is trying to kill David, he prays. He looks to God for help. Saul's terrified by the Philistines. He goes to God for help, but God is silent. God doesn't always do for Saul what Saul thinks God should do. And so what Saul decides to do is when God doesn't show up in the way that he thinks that God should show up, when it seems like his chasing after God is futile, Saul stops chasing after God. And we've seen this last week as well. And he starts taking matters into his own hands. And this week, he not only just takes matters into his own hands, when God is silent with Saul, he decides to look to something else. And it gets a little weird and a little interesting. David, on the other hand, even though he is running from Saul, being terrorized by the Amalekites, he never stops chasing God. We have access to David's personal journals during this season in his life, the Psalms. And we can learn from some patterns that we see in his writings. We can see something that's better than coping skills. Be looking for my blog post on my website, www.chasingthegoal.com, and look for my blog post about what to do when it's time to give up on God. When the chase isn't worth it. David does some things, and you will see it in his writings this week. So I'm going to be fleshing this out in my blog post. So be looking for that article. When the chase isn't worth it, it's time to give up on God. At the end of this week's reading, Saul's chase comes to an end. I want to ask you, do you think his chase was worth it? Was his chasing after David trying to kill him, was it a worthy pursuit? How did it come to an end, and why? Number 2, when Saul seeks something other than God for answers, what happens? Who does he go to? What happens? How does that pan out for him? Number 3, David is being chased after so hard by Saul that he feels like he is not safe anywhere in Israelite territory. So David has to defect to Philistine territory, and about 400 to 600 men with their wives, children, belongings, they come with David, and they live in Philistine territory as servants of the Philistines in exchange for the Philistines to grant them some territory. They actually settle in a city named Ziklag. At one point, while David and these men and their families are living in Ziklag, the Amalekites come and raid David's camp and take all of their women, children, livestock, everything that they own. David's men come up with one solution. I want you to look and see, what did they decide to do? What are they talking about doing in light of what the Amalekites have done? And then what does David do? What does David seek? What does he chase after during this time? Number 4, in the middle of David's crazy renegade life, what does he reveal in his personal writings about what he desires most? What does David desire most? And what is he looking to for satisfaction when the king of Israel wants to kill him? His wife's been taken away from him, and a lot of really bad things are being done and said about him. His reputation is at stake. So many things are going wrong, and he doesn't know when it will end. He has no time frame of when any of this will stop and when he can stop running. So in the middle of all this, what does David really desire? What is his greatest desire? And what is he looking to find satisfaction in the middle of all this craziness? This week and the weeks following, we are going to be integrating different parts of scripture to follow the storyline of what is happening with the kings of Israel. Saul, the first king of Israel, followed by David, the second king of Israel, and then David's son, Solomon, will be integrated with the books of 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, and some of the writings of the King David and King Solomon. So you will be seeing many of the Psalms written by David and the Proverbs written by his son Solomon integrated and interwoven with the storyline that we find in Samuel and Kings. Many times you will feel like you're reading the exact same thing you've just read in Kings or Samuel. And the Chronicles are the actual historical documents from the southern kingdom of Judah. We'll delve into all of that a little bit later, but just keep that in mind. As you're reading, it will seem like you are reading the same thing over again, and it will just solidify the storyline in your mind as you continue to chase after the one who is chasing after you. Listen, this is one pursuit that is not futile. So don't stop chasing. I'll see you next week.